All right. So this is now 1 week after 24th birthday. I thought I was really only gonna make these videos like once in a while, but I thought maybe I'm not gonna like make a strict deadline on it or a strict schedule, but like once a week, once every 2 weeks, just record. I guess give a quick update, any thoughts I might have, things like that. Um, Honestly, for this week, I would say like it's just been I'd say it's been a lot harder to be consistent just because I'll have like thoughts of whether or not the work I'm putting in is actually like I have nothing to show for it right now, or I can't really reap the benefits of it right now. But overcoming that this week has honestly been like just keeping faith that brick by brick, I'm getting better every day at whatever it is I'm pursuing. Like the work is not just going into like some void and I'm not going to hear back from it or something like that. Um, So yeah, I'd say this week honestly has been a bit harder than the other weeks in terms of like controlling those thoughts. I'd say at the end of the day, I don't let those thoughts like consume me, and I'm focusing on being persistent over perfect. I think that's a big lesson I've learned, and I'm trying to like really hammer in is even on days where like I can't be perfect in a sense, I can't knock everything off of my to-do list or everything I woke up and I intended I wanted to do. If I can't do it, I tend not to beat myself up over it, but try to just like any way, shape, or form, just make sure I'm persistent and next day come back, next day come back. So yeah, throughout this week, I'd say like I've had a few days where like, for example, after working on applying for jobs, after doing like my daily errands, if I have the errands to run, other stuff like for example, making time for my music was a bit harder, like writing. I think one day I was like, it was 9 p.m. and I'm like, I start writing my music a bit earlier. It's like 9 p.m., an hour or so before I'm about to go to bed. And I'm just like I only have an hour to work with. But even then, I kind of just sat through it and I'm like, all right, let me just force myself to be there. And then whatever happens, happens. At least that day I clocked in and I tried. And it turns out like within I luckily came across a beat that I enjoyed working with, and like within 20 minutes, I practically had like an entire hook or chorus ready for another song that I actually really enjoyed. Like it wasn't even forced; it felt natural. And then I left that session around like 9:30, so only 30 minutes I wrote for it, but I felt so good because I was like, I got something valuable in. Like I don't know if I would have got this had I just been like, all right, you know what, I'll call it a day and just I'll go at it tomorrow. So I think like even the days where I'm like tired, not saying I have to like push myself to crazy limits, but it's like just show up because I'll never know like what I'll get out of it, right? So yeah, being persistent and not trying so hard to be perfect. I think that's been like the takeaway from this week, and also just like trying to suppress that thought of like not so much doubt, but just like that part of me that just is looking for some sort of like result or um, who's like trying to feed off of results. But the case is that like for right now, if I don't have results to show for it, I can't let that demotivate me. And that's like a normal thought to have. I understand that. So I'm letting the thought just come, the emotions that come with it, I'm letting them come and go, experiencing them for what they are, and then trying to just be like, all right, you know what? Maybe today I was like, I had a lot more of those thoughts. Like, for example, today, it's Tuesday, what, March 4th. Yeah, I'd say like I had a lot more of those thoughts where I'm like, man, I'm just doing this work, but I'm like, I don't feel the results of it right now. And I guess feeling demotivated. But I think one thing that's kept me going is like, if I ever get into a habit of like super analyzing myself or like my routine and like just life in general and be like, oh, it's not, something's not going my way, it's not working out, this sucks. I kind of delay it and be like, all right, you know what? Let me come back to it tomorrow. Like, let me wake up tomorrow, get my workout in, come back home, take a shower, meditate, and then let me judge it. And to be honest with you, the feeling's not the same. It's kind of like these are kind of just thoughts that come and go. And I talked about this before in like the earlier videos. Like, yeah, I can't be a victim or a slave to my emotions. but that's much easier said than done. And I feel like I've experienced that this week a lot more, where it's like it's not as easy as I thought it would be. um, but that's okay. I guess that's a part of getting better. And yeah, so I guess if I'm ever feeling something like that, just make a decision the next day, judge it the next day. And the worst time is at night, because that night you're isolated, your day's done, you really have nothing on your mind except, you know, all the shit that's maybe not going your way. Like my mind has a lot more time to wander at night than it would throughout the day. And nowadays, to be honest, I'm just like, let me not lose sleep over it. Let me just wake up the next day. And if I still feel that way, maybe I'll address it. But like most times, 9 times out of 10, I don't, that feeling doesn't last. Or if it does, it's a very dull version of it. If it's a feeling of like anxiety, if it's a feeling of like, damn, nothing's going my way, that feeling doesn't really last the next day. And if it does, it's like 10% of what it was the day before. So yeah, just learning to, I guess, um, control my mind in that aspect. So yeah, like I don't know, I feel like I'm operating from, I guess, a place of abundance, as people will say. Like I feel like there's plenty of opportunities to come my way, but I kind of just have to not focus on that, but just focus on today. Like whatever I can control for today, just do that. Because really, that is the only thing I can control. Like regardless of whether or not I'm thinking I'm going to get this opportunity, not get this opportunity, where am I going to be a year from now? Where am I going to be a month from now? Like that doesn't really do much for right now. The only thing that will actually get me to where I want to go is just like finding a way to make the most of today. So that means even on the days I'm tired, like today, for example, I didn't feel like writing, but I'm like, man, I want to keep a habit of writing music every day. So I'm like, you know what? It was like around 9:30. I'm like, let me just write for 10 minutes, just 10 minutes. Force myself to write for 10 minutes, and I'll close it after. Turns out I get into like a bit of a rhythm, and instead of writing for 10 minutes, I write for 20 minutes or 30 minutes. Like just making sure that I make the most of today and not delay it and say, you know what, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow, and just having that urgency to do it today is something I think is growing, and I'm learning to do that. So once again, being persistent and not being so consumed by perfection that it stops me from making the most of today, even though today may not be perfect. So yeah, I guess that's like very, I guess, abstract. It isn't maybe if I'm not giving specific enough examples, but I think it applies to most things that you might be pursuing, whether it's music or my career. Um, Same thing. And yeah, I guess the feelings come and go. I'm trying to balance everything. At the same time, like I can't let these thoughts compromise or feed, I guess, a negative loop of just thinking, and then also not let it kind of seep into other aspects of my life. Like if my physical health is good, mental health for the most part is good, relationships are good. Like I can't let these doubts seep into these other aspects or affect them as much. And I'm learning to do that. And I think that's like I think it's a very good skill to have, is being able to switch on and off, like knowing like, okay, this is not the time and place for me to be worried or kind of complaining about my own problems, or kind of self-analyzing, like this is the place where I need to get this done, or this is the place where I need to be here for this person, like just wearing different hats. And then the moment I'm in a like specific room, flip the switch and I do what I need to. And I become like a lot more, I guess, purposeful for it. Like I feel like my every day to day is a lot more purposeful. Like throughout the day I feel joy and content, even just doing like boring work, or like work that's like, man, this doesn't even look that like appealing, but kind of just stuff you have to get done for the sake of doing it. I take joy in that as well. So, or I'm starting to, at least. So that's been a good thing. And then another one has been like, I think recently, like a lot more people who I haven't talked to in a long while have like reached out or be like, hey, let's talk. So just a few days ago, I hopped on a call with a few friends that I haven't talked to in a long time. Then hopefully this coming week, so today's Tuesday, sometime this week I get to meet with another friend. It's been a while that I've met him. So yeah, like I don't know, I I try to keep in a positive attitude. Like I said, I feel like I'm coming from a place of abundance. Like if one thing doesn't go my way, I know the next thing will, or I feel like there's plenty of opportunities out there and they'll come and find me as long as I'm doing the things necessary to make sure that I'm ready for them. And yeah, like relationships wise, like I feel like I'm good reaching out to friends, things like that. Um, yeah, I really don't want to make this video too long. But I guess what I can focus on for this next coming week is like kind of just riding out the storm. So whenever those moments come where I'm like, oh man, like, where you start contemplating and thinking whether or not the work I'm doing is actually going to have any effect, just riding out the storm. That doesn't mean I have to necessarily suppress those thoughts, but just to understand why they're coming and figuring out how I can change my day to day so that those thoughts are not as prevalent or they don't really impact my day. And I think I did a good job with that this week, but I guess next week I want to focus on that as well. But yeah, that's really all I have to say for this video. Not much else. Um, yeah, that's all I have to say.